And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host Andrew Johnson. And Johnson, it's that time of the year. The NBA playoffs are on the horizon. As of this recording, the play-in for the NBA begins tonight. 2 games tonight, 2 games tomorrow, and then on Thursday we have first round action in the NBA playoffs. A very interesting NBA season that we had this season. The year started off with the scandal that we kind of touched on earlier on this season, but it ended with a very surprising, I guess, terms of standings for a couple of teams. Some surprises, some disappointments, but nonetheless, we have the field this year, Johnson, for these two conferences. We'll be breaking down what happened during the season in the second half, while also talking about the play-in matchups tonight, who we think will win the play-ins to move on to the playoffs, and then who will win their respective first-round matchups going in to the first round of the NBA postseason.
Yeah, Nick, are you ready to talk about playoff basketball?
Uh, I'll try. I'll try my best.
Listen, we had an
Uh,
explosive NCAA season that just wrapped up, and now, as always happens, NBA goes away in March but comes back in April. So here we are, April 14th. Play-in tournament is starting, and there's a lot of criticism when this was first implemented a couple of years ago. And over the last couple of years, people have been wanting this more and more and more, especially if you're a perennial contender, like let's say the Golden State Warriors, who would be out of the playoffs entirely this year. Or like let's say the Eastern Conference, where 3 games separated the seeds 5 through 10. That'd be awful to win 43 games and be tied with 4 of the teams and miss the playoffs based off tiebreakers. So that's why this has gotten a lot of popularity the last couple of years. But Nick, with that being said, let's go into it.
well, I think let's start off with the standings of what happened to end the regular season for both the Eastern and Western Conference. We'll start off from the Eastern Conference. The Detroit Pistons, of course, with a tremendous season, winning 60 games this year, the best record in the Eastern Conference. I did predict that they would be a top 3 seed going into the season. Did not think they would get the number 1 overall seed in the East, but nonetheless, that is the case for Detroit. Chance for them to get back to their old glory, of course, in the early 2000s. They were one of the best teams in the NBA, course, won an NBA championship back in 2004, and they would like to get back to that spot this season, of course. Cade Cunningham, despite being injured a couple of weeks ago with that punctured lung, is back, looking to get Detroit a nice run in the postseason after losing in the first round last year to the Knicks. So Detroit with some optimism this year. You look at the Boston Celtics, of course, who going into the season did not have Jason Tatum. He has since returned from that big injury he had during the postseason last year. They are the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. And if I had to guess, they are probably the betting favorite in the Eastern Conference to go to the NBA Finals. Still a really, really good, solid roster. And now with Tatum back, that's a big boost for Boston going into the postseason this time around. You have the New York Knicks at the 3 seed at 53 and 29. Another strong year. First year, of course, for Mike Brown being the head coach for New York this season. For most wins, I believe, in his first year as a Knicks head coach in franchise history. And we'll see what they can get done. An interesting first round matchup they have coming around against a former foe from a couple years ago that has provided some big time playoff moments. But we'll see how the Knicks do for your sake and my sake going into this postseason run. You have the Cleveland Cavaliers, the 4 seed, a strong year again for them. Not as strong as, of course, last season, but we'll see if James Harden can provide some type of spark. Of course, he was traded during the deadline to Cleveland, looking to help them maybe get to the NBA Finals for the first time since LeBron was there. One of the bigger surprises, I think, in the Eastern Conference was Toronto this season. 5 seed in the East at 46 and 36, a really strong year for the Raptors, for a team that I think both you and I expected maybe to get to the play-in, but they get to the actual playoff itself and avoided that play-in game barely on the final day of the regular season. And that same thing went for the Atlanta Hawks, who also made the postseason after, remember, trading Trae Young away during the trade deadline, looking like they were going to be tanking for next season. And instead, they've been one of the hotter teams in the NBA, a really, really formidable opponent going against the Knicks in the first round with a young core that For personally, for me, I think it's going to be a very scary match the Knicks have with Atlanta this time around, once again in the first round. And then the play-in teams, you have the 7 seed Philadelphia 76ers, who will not have Joel Embiid for the play-in tournament, so that's something to note. We'll see what his timetable is for the NBA playoffs if Philadelphia gets past the play-in tournament. The Orlando Magic, the number 8 seed, I think a lot of people were expecting them to take a jump this season. That was not the case. They will have to make it out of the play-in to move into the postseason. Another surprising team in the Eastern Conference was the Charlotte Hornets. A strong year for them after starting the season, I think 6-15 at one point. They make the play-in tournament. They'll be hosting a game tonight against the Miami Heat, or the 10th seed in this play-in tournament. But a really shocking and surprising, and I would say fun time around to see Charlotte back into the postseason with a little bit of optimism. And as I mentioned, Miami rounds out the order as the 10th seed. Of course, a different unit this time around for Miami. Basically, riding the coattails of whatever Bam Adebayo could pretty much do. Of course, scoring 83 points a couple months ago. Can he get Miami 2 wins on the road to send them into the playoffs? Other than that, Johnson, what were your takes on the Eastern Conference this year?
Yeah, down year for the Boston Celtics in name only. They were projected to maybe be the 8 seed, the 7 seed. They were definitely in playoff contention just because the bottom of the East is so abysmal. You had 4 teams down there that wanted nothing to do with the playoffs to begin with. So when you had the Pacers, Nets, Wizards down there, uh,
Yeah, all
really,
tanking.
all tanking. And the Bulls, even though a lot of people projected the Bulls to maybe make the play, and they're really having a serious franchise in the last couple of years. Uh, Far outcry from the previous glory days of the 1990s. And when you have
And
4 teams
Milwaukee,
like
too.
that, yeah, in Milwaukee too, which decided to shut it down. So, like, making the playoffs by default was kind of funny for the Eastern Conference. And yeah, so Boston expected to have a gap year, ended up coming second in the conference, winning the Atlantic Division. The Knicks, if they didn't have that huge stretch in the middle of the year where they went 2-9, we would look at them completely differently. It almost seems like for a month after they won the NBA Cup, they forgot how to play basketball.
Right.
And now, ever since that happened, they finished top 5 in offensive and defensive net. So this is a top 5 team on the offensive and defensive side of the ball this year going into the playoffs. So that's something to look at. Even though a lot of people are counting this team out, it seems like it's taken almost 2 seasons with that Brunson Cat pick and roll, or pick and roll, pick and pop, 2-man game, whatever you want to call it, is really effective this time of year. Like, it was very awkward for 120 games, but now it seems like they're cooking. And that leads you to the rest of the Eastern Conference now. Cleveland, which they were the belle of the ball a couple of years ago, down to the 4 seed now.
Yeah, remember everyone was projecting them after the Harden trade to be maybe the favorite in the Eastern Conference after that happened.
Yeah, and I completely forgot they had James Harden until I started watching Cavs games again. So
Yeah,
that's how you know how quiet it's been on that front. Toronto making that leap, 5 seed. Atlanta finishing the season 21-9, one of the hottest teams in the playoffs, what do you even want to call it? And then you look at
playoffs.
7,
Yeah,
8, 9, Philadelphia, which is I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know if they're trying to compete. I don't know if they're trying to tank. I don't know what they're trying to do. If they're just trying to maybe sell playoff tickets. Orlando, which is a team that we expected to make that jump, like you said, they didn't. And then you have 2 teams on the opposite side of the spectrum for the 9-10 matchup in Charlotte and Miami. Charlotte, a team that has come alive ever since getting Concanipple. They've had really great rookies. They have great guard play. They've got exciting bigs. Nick, would you like to remind everyone who the center is over there? Former Big East defensive player of the year.
Kalkbrenner. I saw him on Sunday,
He's
and
a
man,
monster.
yeah, I
Even though
was
he's playing
getting.
against Nick's backup,
No, I know. I was still getting PTSD for the pick and roll and see him just get easy dunks. It was a tough see, but like you mentioned, the Knicks were playing their backups that night. There wasn't much to
Yeah, but
note about that
listen,
game.
in a full. I know they lost the game against Detroit, but he looked pretty decent against Detroit too. So anyway, that leads me to go into predictions now. Nick, Charlotte versus Miami, a team that is always seems to make the playoffs in the Miami Heat, and then you have the charismatic underdog in the Hornets outside of Miles Bridges. Who do you have?
I gotta. So you gotta remember, keep in mind for those that don't know, of course, this is the 9-10 play-in. The winner of this game will play the loser of the 7-8 game, and that will be the 8th seed in the playoffs. That goes for the Western Conference as well. I kind of want to see Charlotte win. I just think it's a nice, a fun story right now going in the NBA to see them, finally starting to get back to a team that we haven't seen in years or decades, I should say. Um, watching them on Sunday, they obviously played their stars, and again, they were playing the Knicks backups, but you see the talents there. You mentioned Nipple. More than likely, in my opinion, it's between him or Cooper Flag that will win
But
the
the
Rookie of
narrative
the
is
Year.
Con right now.
I think it's Nipple that's going to get it probably just because of them making the postseason. But really strong to have him. You have Bridges, who, of course, is not really a great guy off the court, but is still providing you with 17 points a game. Kobe White also was really big for them on Sunday, and he's been a nice piece for them off the bench since they got him. They also have Colin Sexton coming off the bench. And you also look at the Melo Ball, another strong year for him, as well as Brandon Miller. I like what Charlotte brings to the table, so I have them winning this game and moving on to play the loser of the matchup between Orlando and Philadelphia. I'll make that prediction of that game afterwards as well. So I have Charlotte. What about you?
I also have Charlotte, and it's crazy how narratives can shift so quickly in the NBA because everyone forgets about what happened with Miles Bridges and how he shouldn't be playing basketball right now. But a lot of people forget about what happened to Brandon Miller
Brandon
a
Miller.
couple of years ago too.
Yeah, I mentioned this I was mentioning this to a couple coworkers on Sunday. I was telling them about that story. They couldn't believe it. I was like, yeah, that did happen in college. That did
Yeah,
happen.
so a lot of it's only a team like Charlotte where the media won't really dog you, like LA, New York, Chicago, Boston. They would get dogged every single day asking why you're employing these guys, and
Right.
they're playing basketball, so here we are.
Right. Yeah, I like I said, I think everyone would like to see it. I think, obviously Charlotte's not a big, they're not in a big time market and everything like that. But I think like seeing a team that hasn't been good in decades finally get a little bit better and now have a chance to make the postseason potentially if they can win 2 games, I would like to see it. So I'll be rooting for them in this game. Miami, of course, obviously has the playoff pedigree from years and years prior, but there's something about this Charlotte team I don't know that I can't look past. That's why I like them in this game tonight.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
completely agree with you.
what about the other Eastern playing game? You have Orlando, the 8th seed. The 76ers are the 7th seed. Who do you have
I
making the
have
postseason as the 7th seed?
Philadelphia until proven guilty. I know you don't have
I do
NB,
too.
but you still have a lot of talent on that team. You have a lot of young, developing talent. When you want to talk about Philadelphia, they got Paul George, which everyone said, oh, yeah, they got Paul George, but he's not the star of the show here. The star of the show is their guard, Tyrese Maxey, who,
Yeah, Maxey.
in my opinion, has overtaken Joel Embiid in Philly.
Yeah,
That is the
Maxey had an
Maxey show.
incredible year
Now.
this year.
Listen, Paul George, he had a respectable bounce back year, averaging 17 points a game, but you have a 20-year-old shooting guard putting out 16 on pretty much identical efficiency.
Yeah.
And he's a guard. He's a lot smaller than Paul George. So it's way more impressive when a guard does that. And you have some good bench pieces like Quentin Grimes right there. So they have a lot of stuff here still. Yeah, Kelly Oubre. I think he's starting for them, though.
Is he starting now for them?
I think
I should
he
know
is.
that. They also have Andre Drummond replacing Embiid, I think, at center. So it's not the worst center you could possibly have. He leads the team.
No, I mean,
rebounds.
Andre Drummond, he's changed his game, too. He's not a knockdown shooter, but you can't really leave him open. He's shooting 35% on the year, so maybe he makes a 30 like every other game, but you at least have to respect the spacing because he's got the mid-range game, too.
I think the only reason I like Philadelphia a lot in this game also is I'm just not like I think I mentioned it earlier with Orlando. There were a lot of expectations on this team the last couple seasons, and it just has not been that way. It feels like these last couple years. Of course, they traded all those first round picks for Desmond Bain this past offseason. And Bain had a good season, don't get me wrong, averaged 20 points a game this year for them. They have 3 players that averaged over 20 points a game this year. But it just feels as if like something's not clicking for them overall for the season. And I don't know. It just gives me a bad vibe going into a game like this. You're going to go on the road to a really hostile environment.
This is what I'm going to say about this, Nick. the main criticism is because Paolo Banchero is your leader here. He's he's getting paid the most. He's the star. He's getting the most touches, averages the most point. He's in the all-star conversation all the time. So if he's your star, and the criticism with him is he's a guy that isn't going to reach his full potential until he has a Kevin Love-like role in the NBA, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people are saying he is ultra talented, but he's not talented enough to be the guy. So my advice to Paolo is, and that to everyone really, if he wants to break that narrative, this has to be his game to win. He has to win this game. It has to be off his back, and he has to perform well in the next series. So he can kind of dispel some of that narrative in the meantime. But with that being said, I'm taking Philadelphia.
So that would both leave us with the eight seed matchup being between Orlando and Charlotte. So who do you have as the 8 seed?
I would say give me Charlotte as the 8th seed.
I have Charlotte too. Okay. So then, do we want to go to the Western Conference before we go into the full Eastern Conference playoffs, or do we want to go straight?
Let's finish the play-in.
Okay. So then I think let's tie that in with the Western Conference. We'll talk about the standings, and then we'll go into the play-in itself for the Western Conference. So in the Western Conference this season, you look at the standings for that Western Conference year. Of course, leading it off, the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder, another strong season for them. Are they the favorite in their own conference? I don't know. I think there's a team that has had a major turnaround this season that I think might be the favorite, and they've had their number against them for the majority of the year. And maybe it's a team that you might like as well, Johnson. You might go with the team that you have gone with a lot of times prior, but it's been a great year for the San Antonio Spurs. 62-20. They look like a juggernaut right now. They have a really strong entirety of their roster, solid role players, a really strong lineup, and of course, Victor Wembanyama, the unicorn type player he is going to get you opportunities to win a lot of basketball games. So, really strong. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing about the Spurs, this reminds me of the Spurs of old, because the Spurs of old would be 9, 10, 11 deep.
Yeah.
That's starting like five. Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, Julian Champagnie. Very solid starting five. Then you have Keldon Johnson as your sixth man, Dylan Harper getting great minutes. And he's gotten some criticism too this year, but he's having a fantastic year. Just because he's not Cooper Flag or Con Knipple doesn't mean you have to criticize him.
Right.
And then you still have Harrison Barnes there too. And their ninth man, Luke Cornett, he gives you great minutes. He's not a liability out there. You can rely on him offensively and defensively. They are legitimately 9 deep.
Cornett's been was a big part of some of the Celtics runs the last couple of years off the bench. So
and this team is young too.
Right.
The oldest person in that whole lineup,
Barnes?
Nick, is Barnes at 33, and then Cornett is 30. Every single one of these guys, there'd be De'Aaron Fox next at 28, who's just entering his prime. Right. Realistically, this lineup, if you want to keep this course, call it the core 7 together, you have 5 or 6 years before even one of them ages out, and that'd be De'Aaron Fox. And the other ones will just be turning 30, or they'd be in their late 20s. You got 5-6 years with this lineup to win something after this.
Yeah, I mean, if the years the Spurs were tanking, it's led up to this moment, and it's worked out perfectly for them. They have gone from a team that was barely winning 30 games the last couple of seasons to now a 60-win team. And in my opinion, they're probably not the favorite in the West because of OKC, but I feel like they should be the favorite in the.
And these are a lot of local guys on this team too. Dylan Harper went to Rutgers. Julian Champagnie went to St. John's. You have Stephon Castle who went to UConn. So there's a lot of Northeast basketball being represented in the Southwest.
Yeah. And then speaking about the rest of the conference, you have the Denver Nuggets, of course, a team that you have always liked because of Nikola Jokic, of course, who averaged triple-double this season. Another incredible year for him. Looking to lead Denver back into another run in the playoffs. You have, of course, the Los Angeles Lakers as well. Obviously, injury concerns for the Lakers right now going into the playoffs. Luka Doncic of note, of course. Austin Reeves also got hurt before the postseason. So that's going to be something to know for the Lakers going in to this first-round matchup that they have with the Houston Rockets, who, of course, made the big trade for Kevin Durant in the offseason. I feel like maybe, despite a 52-win year, maybe they were expecting a little bit more out of this team this season. Number 2 seed in the Western Conference last year. They are the 5 seed this time around. We'll see how far they go. And then to round out the playoff teams before the play-in, you have the Minnesota Timberwolves, once again the number 6 seed in the West. Again, you have a they have a good solid team. It's going to come down to, has Chris Finch, has he gotten enough out of this team beforehand? Like, is the peak already been there for the Timberwolves, or can they maybe make a run this time around? Tough matchup in the first round with Denver. That's gonna be really tough, especially for Rudy Gobert having to go up against Nikola Jokic in that first round matchup. And then talk about the playing teams, Johnson. These were, I think, in my opinion, some of the biggest surprises also in terms of some of the play-in teams. You first off started with Phoenix. Of course, they traded Kevin Durant away, made all these moves that looked like they were going to be tanking this season, and they're still playing for an opportunity to make the playoffs. Devin Booker, a strong year as well, and they went 45 games. They'll have an opportunity twice to make the postseason this time around, and they will face the Portland Trailblazers in the first round of the NBA play-in tournament. That game gets underway tonight. How about Portland? I mentioned the controversy to start the season. They, of course, lose their head coach, Chauncey Billups, to the gambling scandal that rocked the NBA to begin the season. And they, had Thiago Splitter become the interim head coach. And what does he do? He has a team that goes 42-40. Denny Avila having a monster all-star season. Shaedon Sharpe having a strong year as well. They traded for Drew Holiday in the offseason. And this team now will also have 2 opportunities to make the NBA playoffs this season. So another fun scenario like we saw with Charlotte, where playoff basketball is back in Portland this time around this season. And then you round out the play-in. You have the Clippers, who had a really bad start to the season and were able to ride the ship and make the playoffs, but will have to win 2 games to make the postseason as the number 8 seed in the Western Conference. They also went 42-40. And then a down year for Golden State, 37 wins this season. A lot of injuries, especially to guys like Steph Curry. You lost Jimmy Butler this season as well, which is a really big loss for them. And this team is pretty much limping into this play-in, having to win 2 games just to get that number 8 seed and take on OKC in the first round. With all that being said, Johnson, let's start off with the first play-in matchup, unless you have any other notes on the Western Conference before we break down those matchups.
No real notes, Nick, but just that my pick for MVP would have been Luka, but he was unfortunately not able to make that cut. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, the injury at the end of the season is gonna hurt him.
But yeah, I want to kind of talk about these 4 teams at the bottom, quote unquote, and one of them being Golden State and the Clippers, which to me is a really bad situation because the Clippers are playing like the best team in basketball in this second half of the season. When you have to realize that there were serious talks of teams joking around saying, I think we need to just let teams beat the Clippers so the OKC doesn't get their draft pick. They finish this, so they start the season 6-21, and then they finish the season, get this, 36-19.
Yeah.
36-19. You know what kind of pace that is, Nick, from the beginning of the year? So since this happened, they are winning 65% of their games. It's a 54-win pace.
Yeah, I think Tyronn Lue at one point even said they had to do that exact win percentage to just make the playoffs.
So they are playing like a top 5, top 6 team this playoffs. Like that's how they're going into these playoffs. Their record is very misleading because they had such a terrible start beginning of the season, and they've been killing it ever since the end of December. Now, that being said, they have to go against the Warriors.
The question is, I mean, it's obviously not the Warriors of past, sure.
And Steph Curry may not play.
Yeah, Curry might not play either. I think you and I probably both agreed that I think the Clippers got this one. It's just not a really scary Golden State team you're facing this time around.
Yeah, I have no Jimmy Butler. He's out of that with that. Is it ACL? Is what it's Achilles?
Yeah,
it's ACL.
So. Yeah.
So if the ACL tear, I mean, you have Kristaps Porzingis, but yay, I guess that's great. He's only playing like 25, 30 minutes a game, so he's not going to be that big of a factor. He seems to be like a shell of himself. Steph Curry is not going to play maybe limited minutes. He played 20. He's been playing 25 to 30 minutes till he's come off the bench a couple of games. He's not really scoring a lot. maybe he's averaging 20 points a game over the last five. Again, one of those games he was pretty bad in against the Spurs. Uh, are you going to rely on Draymond Green to get you through this game? I don't think so. Yeah, Pozemski's there. No. To me, it's written in the stars that the Clippers win this game.
Yeah. Yeah, I have the Clippers winning too. I just haven't really. It's kind of like Orlando in a way. Like, I just don't see a way that Golden State can get this done. And even if they do get it done, I don't even think they win the next game either. Even if it is Portland, I just Golden State just does not hasn't really had a strong year. That's not saying much, but this Clippers team, as you mentioned, is one of the hotter teams in the NBA going into the playoffs. I think for if you're a team like OKC is the one seed, like you're hoping that the Clippers probably lose one of these two games, so
So
that they don't get in.
it sounds like you have Phoenix winning the next round by your comments, because I do too.
Yeah, yeah. I have the Suns. I really like. Listen, I kind of want them to lose, and the reason is because I would like to see a playoff game type of atmosphere in Portland, because the Trailblazers would host that game against the Clippers for the 8th seed. So I would like to see that happen. I think the Suns also have that guy at the end that's going to get you that game winning shot if needed in Devin Booker. Denny Avdija's had a great season for Portland, but if you're gonna tell me you're gonna pick between the two guys, you're gonna give me Devin Booker all the time. So I'll go with Phoenix in this game. I'll have them facing San Antonio in the first round, which also feels like some nostalgia right there. How many playoff matches have those two teams had in years prior? So I'll have Phoenix taking the 7th seed down and moving on to take on the Spurs, which would lead us to having the Clippers and the Trailblazers as our 8th seed matchup. Who do you have in that?
Give me the Clippers.
I have the Clippers too. Fun story, like I said, with Portland, but I don't think it's going to get too far. I think the Clippers are just. I think it's destined for them to get the 8th seed and at least make it to the playoffs. So, with that being said, Johnson, let's go into now the full totality of our matches for the playoffs. You and I both agreed on each of the play-ins, so we have the exact same matchups this time around. So, in the Eastern Conference, if everything goes to what we have picked, it would be Detroit taking on Charlotte, if I'm correct.
That is correct.
Right. Okay. Again, that doesn't have to be like that, but that's what we have for the moment. Detroit facing Charlotte is our play-in matchup, regardless. Whoever Detroit plays in the first round, how many? Who do you have winning the series to move on to the second round?
Detroit in five. It will be a gentleman's sweep. Charlotte will give them fits. The games will look a lot closer than they do if you're just a box score warrior. But give me Detroit in five.
I will go with Detroit at 5 as well. I could see Charlotte maybe getting a game or two if it is Charlotte. I just don't see a scenario. Detroit should win this series. Their second round matchup would be more interesting, depending on who it is between Cleveland and Toronto. But I think Detroit gets this done. I don't want to say with ease, but I think they get it done with ease. Against whether it's Miami, Charlotte, Orlando, or Philadelphia, in my opinion. We both have Boston taking on Philadelphia, if that is indeed the case in the 2-7 matchup. Who do you have in that series, if it is Boston and Philadelphia or Boston against
That's
whoever?
Boston in a sweep. I don't care who it is.
Boston in a sweep. I'll take Boston, the gentleman's sweep in 5 games. I think if it is Philadelphia, Maxey will go off for one big game, and that will probably get Philadelphia the win. And I would expect Embiid, if they get there, I would expect Embiid to play in that series. I don't know how much of the series he would play, because knowing his luck, he'd probably get hurt again. But I'll go with Boston in 5, if that's the case. Now, what about our matchup in the first round? Knicks and the Hawks. This is, of course, the first official matchup that we know is guaranteed that we're picking from.
Give me Knicks in 6.
Yeah, they're not going to make it easy. I can just sense it now. Atlanta
This will not be easy, and they will win on the road. They will not clinch this at home.
Yeah, they don't want to. I think the Boston series was the only one we've seen
clinch at home.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Trying to think of all the series we've had. Cleveland was on the road. What are they? Cleveland was on the road. Detroit was on the road. Yeah, a lot of them have been on the road. I can't think of a lot of home series outside of the Boston series. Yeah, yeah. I'll go with Knicks in 6 as well. I think Atlanta will provide a lot of fits, and they have a. I think the best thing about Atlanta is their bench is really, really strong. And that's going to be the question mark for the Knicks. Is this bench going to outplay Atlanta for the majority of the series? I don't know, but they'll need them in a couple of games because this Hawks bench can shoot very, very well. So I'll go with Knicks in 6 as well in that series. What about Cleveland and Toronto? What do you got in that matchup?
Toronto in 7, first shocker
Oh,
of the Eastern Conference. They have a lot of young pieces, and I think they're hungrier. And Cleveland just seems to be regressing. Toronto is ascending. They're going to cross paths here, and Toronto's going to overtake them.
I'm gonna go with the Cavs in 6. I think I'm basing it off of the Raptors. I think most of their playoff experience is former guys in the Knicks, of course, and Barrett and Quickly. Um, I don't. Scotty Barnes has played a little bit of playoff action, but not much. Um, I'll go with Cleveland in six games. I originally had 5, but I think Toronto will play a little bit of a tough factor in this series. So I'll go with Cleveland. They were one of those teams that I think if they get to the second round against Detroit, I think they would. I think they would have a really good shot of beating the Pistons in the second round if that is the case. So give me Cleveland in 6 games. You have Toronto in 7 games. Our first difference of this pick'em. Let's go to the Western Conference. We both had the Thunder taking on the Los Angeles Clippers in the first round. If that is the 8th seed, regardless, who do you have in that series?
Give me OKC in 4. I don't care
I'll
who it
go.
is.
I'll go OKC and gentleman sweep. I think if it's the Clippers, they get one. They get one game. But yeah, I would see Clippers.
Well, I don't think it can be the Clippers, right?
Well, no, it'd be the Clippers regardless
For 1-8?
Because of the 9 seed.
No, the Oh yeah, you're right. It would be the Clippers.
Yeah,
Sorry
it'd be
about
the
that.
Clippers regardless. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. If it is the Clippers, at least, it could be Golden State or it could be Portland or even Phoenix technically too. But
Yeah, if we're going to the Clippers, yeah, it's still gonna be 4.
yeah, if it's Clippers, I think the Clippers can maybe sneak a game out. We see we've seen Kawhi Leonard and his playoff heroics before, but it's not much against this OKC
It's the
team.
whistle. Shea has the most egregious whistle in the NBA. And people like to say Brunson has a favorable whistle. He's not even the top 25 whistles in the NBA. Shea, you breathe on him, he gets a foul. So he's going to average 12, 13 free throws this game of this series. It's not going to be close.
And it's going to probably help him win MVP again, which, despite him missing a lot of action too, that's the problem with a lot of the MVP candidates. If you look at the MVP odds for this season, Jokic at one point got injured. Kate Cunningham at one point got injured. SGA got injured at one point. Luka got injured at one point. Those are the top 4 vote getters right now for the MVP odds. SGA probably is going to win it by default because he missed not as many games, I feel like, but he also is still averaging around 30 plus points a game. And most of that, as you mentioned, probably is due to the fact that he got a lot of whistles called by the referees in their games. So, being that as it may, I'll go with Thunder at 5. What about San Antonio in the 7 seed matchup? You and I both had the Suns as the 7 seed in that matchup.
Give me San Antonio in 6 only because they're inexperienced.
I'm gonna go with Spurs in 5. I think I'm having trouble finding I'm having trouble finding Phoenix getting 2 wins if it's the Suns against the Spurs. So yeah, Spurs are just a really, really strong team. I got them in 5 games in that matchup. Now, this next one, Johnson, in my opinion, I think is the best matchup of the first round of the playoffs this year. Denver and Minnesota 3-6 matchup in the Western Conference. What do you got on that one?
It's a good question, Nick. I have Denver in 7.
Denver at 7. Okay.
Denver in 7. It's going to be very, very hard matchup despite the 3-6. So give me Denver in 7. I mean, this is going to be absolute hell for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, regardless if San Antonio wins, they're going to have a really tough matchup in the second round if it's either the Spurs or, well, not regardless. And I'm sorry. If it's regardless of whoever the Spurs get, it's either the Denver or Minnesota. It's not an easy matchup for the Spurs in the second round. I also have Denver in 7. I have a feeling that if the Timberwolves don't win this matchup, they might be moving on from Chris Finch. That could be maybe just a gut feeling, but I feel like they haven't hit the potential that they would have been hoping for. another 6 seed this season. And if they go out in the first round again, I don't know. That could be it for him at the helm. So I'll get Denver in 7 to move on and take on Wemby and the Spurs. That'd be an incredible second round matchup if it's San Antonio and Denver. And then the final first round matchup of the Western Conference, it's Lakers and the Rockets, the 4-5 matchup. Kevin Durant and James Harden. I'm sorry, James Harden. Kevin Durant and LeBron James. I knew there was a James there. Kevin Durant, LeBron James. Towards the end of their careers, they faced each other in the playoffs once again, but this time in the first round. Who gets it done?
Give me Houston in 6. They get the upset.
So you got them on the at home winning this series.
At home.
I've got them winning in Los Angeles in Game 7. I could just see this going to 7 games. A lot of hype and media towards it being Game 7, and everyone maybe saying, "Is this LeBron's last game or whatever?" If they lose tonight, obviously it probably won't be. But
he's coming back from retirement tour.
Yeah, 100%. But you know how the media is. They're gonna try to spin it that way.
Yeah, listen, this is gonna be a mismatch nightmare. You have KD who will get you 25. If you need 30 points, he'll get you 30 points. If you need 25 points, he'll get you 25 points, and he's gonna do it on 50, 40, 90 splits. And you have Alperen Sengun, who's been fantastic all year. You got a lockdown defender playing your point guard and Amen Thompson. You have Reed Shepherd, who's coming off the bench. He's making a lot of people eat their words because he wasn't. People who were 4 games into the season, they were calling for this guy's head, and now he's really been great to end this at the end of the season. And you have a lot of really great young talent on Houston that's surrounded by some veteran leadership in Kevin Durant. So I'm excited for this team, and you have a Lakers team with LeBron that's hobbled up. No Luka. If he does come back, it's heavy minutes restriction. No Austin Reeves. It's going to be very tough.
Yeah, I agree with. The injuries are definitely concerning for the Lakers. I think if they're able to get healthy and at least prolong this series, then it will help them. But I'll go with Houston in 7 games. That should be an interesting first round matchup too. I think those last 2 matches that we covered are probably going to be the 2 best of the playoffs, in my opinion. But I could be wrong about that. I think Denver, Minnesota, regardless, is the best matchup of the first round of either one of the conferences. So we'll see. Now with that, Johnson, let's pick who we think will make the NBA playoffs at the end of this and who will win the championship. Who do you have in the East and West?
Detroit, San Antonio, with your winners, the Spurs.
I have the Celtics and the Spurs, with the winner being Boston.
See, I don't have Boston going past the Knicks, but I have the Knicks probably losing to Detroit.
Johnson. Yeah, I remember doing this on purpose.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. If trivial, I mean, I would love this. If New York could beat them again, that'd be great. For purposes of not trying to jinx the Knicks, I will just take the Celtics in that spot, and hopefully I jinx them in that scenario. I think the Spurs, in my opinion, we both took them, so that could be a complete jinx on us if they don't get there. But this is kind of like Greg Popovich's like best case scenario, like watching NBA Finals. If you had to watch an NBA Finals, like you get a team that's been built around like what Brad Stevens has been in the front office, as someone's calling him a Popovich disciple. If you watch Game of Zones, if you remember that. And you have, of course, Popovich no longer with the team now, but you have one of his assistants now as the head coach, and he's got this team with 60 wins and looking like a really tough out right now in the Western Conference. So I'll go Boston, San Antonio, but that should be fun if that's the case. So yeah, Johnson, that will do it for this episode. Of course, as the playoffs go along, you and I will recap each round of the postseason. We'll make our second round predictions once the first round comes to an end, and we'll see if our picks do indeed become correct. We'll have our first action of this play-in tournament kicking off in tipping off in about a couple of minutes. First game of the play-in is about to tip off between Miami and Charlotte. And there's Phoenix, or I should say Portland and Phoenix, to round out tonight. And then tomorrow you have the other 2 matchups, Clippers and Warriors, as well as Orlando and Philadelphia. So So Johnson and I, next time we'll talk about the NBA is when the first round concludes, and we will preview the second round. But for you and I, Johnson, this week, it'll be the first of 2 episodes this week for us here at the All Gas No Break Sports Show. We have a WrestleMania preview show coming up this week. You and I will break down the matches for this weekend's card for WrestleMania 42. Should be an interesting one. Can't say I am as hyped as I am in years past, but I'll get into that more when we discuss WrestleMania this upcoming week. And then, of course, next week is the NFL mock draft show. You and I will make our picks for the NFL teams in this year's NFL draft, and we'll see how many picks we can get correct while breaking down what all the teams did in the offseason and what their team needs are going into this NFL draft. But that's going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. The first round of the NBA playoffs is on the horizon. We have 2 playing games tonight, 2 playing games tomorrow, and then we kick things off on Friday. Correction, not from Thursday. Kick things off in the NBA postseason on Friday and seeing who will take a part of this year's NBA postseason in the first round. After the play-in matchups, we then will discuss next weekend, or a couple weeks from now, I should say, the second round matchups, and we'll see who gets closer and one step closer to winning the Larry O'Brien Championship Trophy at the end of the year. For Nicholas Pavona and Andrew Johnson, this has been the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.